some new information about the text messages.
Strzok says this: there's no big there, and what he's referring to is the would-be collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia.
And if they have evidence that, these guys acted on their political biases, that's very alarming.
The president is going to Davos to speak to world leaders about investing in the United States. America first is not America alone.
Liberals and a lot of Democrats are furious with you right now. What's your response to all that anger?
People love the Dreamers, but don't want the government shut down for it.
The Schumer shutdown overplayed their hand and misread the American people. The president's been instinctive about this all along, and he's been right.
Outrage growing this morning after the NFL rejects this Super Bowl ad from a veterans group.
We felt this was a strong form of corporate censorship. And all we did is simply ask, please stand.
Well, we cannot believe we give you the day and with the time and the year.
What are you talking about?
The year? Did you forget what year it was?
Yeah, sometimes.
The year?
Yeah, sometimes you write a check.
In the month of January, you have the right to. So you have a few more days to forget what year you're in.
Right, but we just help everybody get them off to a good start. We tell them what day it is.
Maybe that's what makes us the world's #1 cable morning news show. We give you the time, we tell you the day and the year.
And it's Wednesday. You're halfway through the work week.
Yep.
Only 2 more alarm clocks. When I hear that song, I think of the movie Trolls. Y'all are so far past that. Your kids are grown. Do you remember the Kira song and it was in like a Disney movie?
Right. I don't really, I don't watch movies anymore. There's just too much to read and too much to learn.
That is not what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
But okay.
Well, we may have some sunshine in our pocket, but there's none outside here, our world headquarters. It is a gray day. Meanwhile, let's talk about what kind of a day it is down in Washington, D.C. Well, as it turns out, Robert Mueller, the special counsel, looking into Russia collusion, it sounds like he's on a collision course with the president of the United States, because according to the Washington Post, Mr. Mueller wants to talk face-to-face to the president and also allow him to submit to some written questions. The worry is, given the fact that the president is given to hyperbole from time to time, that he might say something that is not accurate, and that always brings up the perjury trap thing. So some people on the political right, I was reading this morning, said, Mr. President, whatever you do, don't meet him face to face. It's better to say it's a witch hunt because you can't trust those people at the FBI than sit down and get yourself into impeachment trouble.
There's no legal obligation for him to speak to him.
It just looks bad.
Well, you could say that too, or if you were a legal counselor, if Judge Napolitano says the president should not be speaking to Robert Mueller, especially after he spoke to all these other people and some of the people the president barely even knows, like Papadopoulos.
I think you let your lawyers do it.
Right. So I think that's important. They also said that Rick Gates' attorney was in and out of the Robert Mueller building, that he might be looking to cut a deal. So we'll see. They're going to try to focus on the Flynn investigation, what led to the James Comey firing. Comey got fired. He's already spoken in December, we believe, right before the new year, with Robert Mueller. That must have went well. They're good friends. And then you have Senator Sessions, who is now Attorney General. He just spoke, they say, grilled for hours.
Right, well, FBI was able to recover 50,000 of those text messages between the two lovers at the FBI. They were still waiting on those 5 months of lost text messages. Oops. But out of those 50,000, some of them are red flags and have been brought to our attention. We want to bring them to your attention. There is one that was... let me read it to you. Let's see. This is from Peter Strzok to his girlfriend. And this is the day that Robert Mueller was appointed to the investigation as special counsel. It was May 19th, 2017. He writes to his girlfriend, Strzok does. And this is talking about, before I read it, about collusion. He says, you and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, it'd be no question. I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there is no big there there.
There is no big there there. And if you look at the Washington Post article that talks about how Robert Mueller wants to talk to the president, it looks like he's not going down the line of collusion. Instead, it is obstruction of justice. And then all the president would have to do is he looked at that text message, look at the next one we're about to read for you, and say, look, it's a witch hunt. I can't trust the people at the FBI because Strzok himself texted this out to his girlfriend. For me, in this case, I personally have a sense of unfinished business. Unleashed it with MYE, mid-year exam. That's a Hillary email caper. Now I need to fix it and to finish it. The question is, what was he talking about there? You know, we had Andy McCarthy on with us about 30 minutes ago, and he said a lot of these text messages look really bad, but maybe it's people just writing stupid stuff, as people do, a lot of gallows humor and stuff like that, or maybe there is, at this point, we don't know, some sort of corruption.
No humor, I would say that. No one's even laughing to themselves in the gallows. Ron Johnson says we have to continue to dig. This is not a distraction. This is bias, potentially corruption at the highest level of the FBI. Here's more.
What this is all about is further evidence of corruption, more than bias, but corruption at the highest levels of the FBI and that secret society. We have an informant that's talking about a group that were holding secret meetings off-site. There's so much smoke here.
So,
no kidding.
And a lot of people say, look, Robert Mueller was running the FBI. Is he going to be that critical about the FBI if he finds out upon further review that the FBI was out to get President Trump? Is that going to be something he's going to uncover, go where the investigation leads him? For example, one time you're looking at the Clinton Whitewater investments. Next thing you know, you're talking about an affair. Would Robert Mueller ever go down this path? And a lot of people are saying, believe it or not, let's have a special counsel probe into the FBI right now.
Right. Get rid of the bad apples.
Right.
And initially, he was given the job, find out if there was Russia collusion. And right now, it doesn't look like he's got that case. Terry Turchi was on the program with Brian about an hour and a half ago, and he said this scandal, what is going on, potential scandal at the FBI, if it's all true, this is like Watergate Part 2.
There's a lot of political dirty tricks going on here. I don't think this trail is going to stop at the door of the Russians. I think it's going to stop where the Democratic Party came through the door of the FBI. And I think this is Watergate Part 2. I think this is Hillary and Bill Clinton Part 2. We put up with all of this in the Clintons during my time in the FBI. And it was one scandal after another.
And that's one of the reasons why Devin Nunes and other members of Congress are trying to get out this 4-page FISA abuse memo. Right now it's classified, but apparently it has been written in such a manner that the average American can understand it, but it does have to be declassified. They're going through a kind of a laborious process to get it to the point where we can read it. They're going to have to sign off on in the committee, and then the president himself would have 5 days to say, I don't think that should go out, but I got a feeling this president would say, I'd like everybody to read about what went on at the FBI.
Here's what he tweeted.
The president tweeted this: where are the 50,000 important text messages between FBI lovers Lisa Page and Peter Strzok blaming Samsung?
You got to be kidding. Meanwhile, there's almost no curiosity on the left about this investigation, about what was going on between these agents, why they're still on the job. They say it's just a distraction to get away from the Mueller probe. The Mueller probe's, thankfully, if it's going to, they're requesting the president, conventional thought says that's just about done. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with immigration and where we know. We know this by February 8th. Mitch McConnell pledged to Senator Schumer we're going to be taking up the DACA deal. Maybe not comprehensive immigration. We'll be able to throw it out there, be able to put amendments in. Well, Chuck Schumer clearly overplayed his hand. Even Democrats are beginning to agree. And he's trying to save face to a degree and said this: I'm pulling the wall out. I promised the president I'd build a wall in our deal on Friday. The deal fell apart, so I'm no longer going to build that wall. So Donald Trump tweeted this out. Crying Chuck fully understands, especially after his humiliating defeat, that if there is no wall, there is no DACA. We must have safety and security together with a strong military for our great people. And how are you going to stop the next generation of kids being brought here under circumstances because their parents are here if you don't secure the border to stop it? So it's a logical link, not an illogical link.
He was blamed for the shutdown, and you're right. I think he's trying to correct what he did wrong because he's finally realizing he should not have done that. You should not add DACA, which was a bargaining chip that they feel like they have. The president feels like his bargaining chip is the wall, and that was supposed to be an immigration. He tried to attach it to funding the government and shutting the government down. People were so mad at him for this.
Oh, man. The political left really steamed. Here's a familiar face reminding the senator of that.
Liberals and a lot of Democrats are furious with you right now. What's your response to all that anger?
Well, look, we've advanced the cause. What people have to understand, and I think most people do, most of the Democrats here on Capitol Hill perfectly understand. We don't have the levers of power. All of us in the Democratic caucus, not just the moderates, but the liberals as well, came to the view that if we carried it on much longer, two things would happen. A, no one would budge. The public would lose support of the shutdown. People love the Dreamers, but don't want the government shut down for it. So we cut the best deal that we could.
Right. Okay, so what is the deal going forward? We had Senator David Perdue with us about an hour ago, and what he said is they're working on a plan that actually incorporates all four of the president's principles. Do something about DACA, have a wall, something about chain migration, and also the visa lottery. He said as well that the high hurdle is, would it pass by the House? And he's confident that what they're working on right now, a bunch of senators, both sides, would pass the House.
Well, the problem is, I would like to add this, the problem is Senate. You got to get 60 votes. And unless he lines up, unless he has these senators that are pliable, like maybe Senator Coons and Manchin, it's not going to pass. So they got to get back to that 25-person meeting that pushed Senator Schumer to bail on this.
That's what, if you watch other networks, they talk about how this is the Republicans' fault. They need 60 votes, so we need Democrats as well. But Samsung just released this statement. We're talking about the text messages, FBI saying we can't recover them because it's Samsung's fault, basically. And Samsung says, we believe that Samsung devices are not the cause of this issue. We will fully cooperate with any investigation.
Keep in mind, what the Department of Justice put out on Friday was we can't find 5 months because these new Samsung phones back then, there was a problem with the software and retention. So obviously Samsung is saying, hey, there's nothing the matter with our phone. It's something at the Department of Justice. And keep in mind, we had Sarah Carter on yesterday, and she said one of the theories floating around right now is that perhaps the Inspector General, Horowitz, down at the Department of Justice, did get all of the email between the lovebirds at the FBI. But somebody may have come in after he took them and tried to get rid of them, in which case that would really be really bad.
The American people deserve to know three things in regards to this, and that's we need to see the FISA memo, we need to know what happened to these text messages, and we need to see them. And what was the third thing I was thinking of?
Maybe there were just two.
No, there was a third. What were you going to say, Brian? And I'll think about it.
The only thing I'm going to add is Senator Johnson told me yesterday on the radio he does not believe that Horowitz has the 5 months of emails.
Okay. The last thing is the secret meetings. The secret meetings within the FBI. If that's happening...
Secret society.
Secret society, and they're doing that just to go against the president, we need to know about that, too.
Man, oh, man, lots to talk about.
All right. DOJ is about to take a major step to crack down on sanctuary cities. Public Affairs Director Sarah Flores is here with the announcement that you'll only see on Fox and Friends, and that's coming up.
Plus, you have a veterans group. They wanted to run this ad at the Super Bowl asking players to stand. But the NFL said no. Hear from one of the vets behind the ad, plus your emails. That'll be next. The NFL made a decision. They had a spot open, and that spot, they thought, I have a good idea. Let's call AmVets. We'd like to support veterans' causes, and we'll see if they have a spot that wants to fill the bill. And I was asking Joe Schinelli, who's the executive director there, I'm like, wow, you guys can afford this? And he said, well, they give us a discount because of the type of organization.
You're talking about advertising.
For advertising.
Say a spot.
Yeah. And this was not a TV spot. It was going to actually be in the official Super Bowl program. And it simply said, hashtag, please stand. And Brian, here's the guy you were just talking about. Listen.
We respect that. We don't argue against that, but we do believe that we should be able to, especially since we're paying, to be able to express our stance on this situation as well. And all we did is simply ask, please stand.
So the NFL rejected that Super Bowl ad and said, we're not going to put that in the program.
Politics.
It's too controversial. Tommy Lahren talks about how the NFL has been controversial. Listen.
Isn't it sad that it has now become too political or too controversial to ask Americans to stand for the American flag? That used to be a given. That used to be something that all Americans were proud to do, regardless of political affiliation, race, gender. That used to be a given, and now it's not. And we have the NFL in part to thank for that. And when they say that they don't want this game to be too political, are you kidding me? What have they done for the last 2 seasons? They've bent over backwards for activist groups and spit in the face of patriotic Americans, veterans, and our military.
Guess who did like the ad? NASCAR NHL, and the NBA, you will be seeing that ad in their programs.
And they do stand for the national anthem.
Yep.
They do. It seems to be a little hypocrisy there. We did get an email from a number of you watching right now. Eric emailed us this. Just show the ad. I'm a vet, and it's embarrassing that some players get to show their political stand and real Americans get the door slammed in our faces.
Mark says, I remember the Super Bowl commercials last year were all about immigration. Now the NFL says they never allow political commercials, question mark. That's rich.
And then Bill says, many of my friends will not watch the Super Bowl due to the NFL rejecting the ad. Very surprised Goodell has a job.
Yeah. You got another 4-year contract.
For how much money? Like 50-something million?
A whole bunch.
Yeah, a lot. It's direct deposit, so I don't really see it.
Somebody must like the job he's doing. All right, it is 8:20 almost here in New York City. Coming up, 20 seconds it will be, 8:20. Coming up, President Trump made this promise to the American people 1 year ago.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
Well, now the president is taking that message to Switzerland and Davos for the World Economics Forum. Stuart Varney says, get ready for a confrontation.
Yeah, baby.
Good morning. Hope you're having a good day. Back with some headlines, starting with a Fox News alert. ISIS claiming responsibility after a suicide car bomb detonates outside a Save the Children office in Afghanistan while gunmen storm inside. At least 2 people are dead and 12 more injured. It's believed that nearly 50 people were in the building. This attack coming just days after the Taliban siege of an upscale hotel in Kabul, where Americans were among the 22 people killed. The teen who opened fire at his high school, killing 2 classmates, will be charged with murder. Police say the 15-year-old boy sprayed students in Benton, Kentucky with bullets, leaving 2 teens dead and 20 injured. 16 have gunshot wounds. The suspect's motive still unknown. One student claims he knew exactly what he was doing and he looked determined.
I just, I took off. I started running. I was just scared for my life. This is terrifying. It's still it's like something out of the movies. It doesn't feel real.
4 students remain hospitalized, and we're now getting our first look at one of the victims, 15-year-old Bailey Nicole Holt. Prosecutors don't want any contact between 13 children and the parents accused of torturing and starving them. David and Louise Turpin heading back to court today as we learn the family was planning to move to Oklahoma. It was reportedly interrupted when their daughter escaped from their California home. 6 of the children will be split up in foster care, while the 7 adult siblings will be sent to an assisted living facility. The couple faces up to 94 years in prison. That's a look at your headlines. Ainsley.
All right. Thank you, Jillian. Well, today, President Trump's going to go to Davos, the World Economic Forum, which is in Switzerland, where he's expected to shake up trade, tout our economy, and meet with world leaders, make America great again while pushing his America First agenda.
But Stuart Varney predicts a confrontation because, Stuart, you've got all these elites there, and they include the climate crowd and the open borders people.
Yes.
And the president has been very vocal about he doesn't like their policies.
You read my notes, didn't you?
They're
That's
right
what you
here,
did.
ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit A.
Let's explain here. Every year in the Swiss Alps, in the town of Davos, the elites of business and politics from around the world, they all get together for a big confab. Now, this is, as you say, this is the home of the global warmers. This is the home of the people who think that income inequality is the greatest threat to capitalism and to our society. These are the open borders people. And in walks our president, President Trump, right in the middle of them. I predict a confrontation because he stands for everything that they don't stand for.
Do you think he
confrontation.
doesn't care, does he? He's like, bring it on.
I think so. Now, look, he could play nice. I mean, he could. I don't think he will. I think he'll stick it to him. I think he'll say, look, we know how to get prosperity. You follow us, learn something. This is how we do it.
He says America first, but not America alone. And he also said we're open for business. Look at our economy. And I watched Gary Cohn's press conference yesterday along with McMaster. And he says, listen, we're going to tell the world what's going on. We want bilateral agreements. You just want these big Titanic agreements. What do you think is the significance of the tariffs on washing machines and solar panels. Is he sending a message intentionally before this visit?
That's exactly what he's doing, in my opinion. Look, I don't agree with putting these tariffs on. I think it could end up in a trade war. I'm not particularly in favor of that kind of protectionist policy. However, this is an opening gambit from our president. He's laying it on the line there. He's saying, look, here we go, sports fans. This is what we're going to do. Now pay attention, because you don't know what's coming next.
Sure, he's saying, go ahead, buy your washing machines and your solar panels from American companies. Meanwhile, Stuart, I hold in my hand a Starbucks iced coffee.
Yes.
What is going to happen to the person who put the coffee in this cup?
He or she is getting a wage increase and an increase in their benefits.
Thanks to?
What we're talking about now is the pass-through flow from the tax cuts given to business passing through to employees. Starbucks is the latest. It's becoming a flood. Disney will give $1,000 to 125,000 employees. Verizon will give $2,500 worth of stock to employees. J.P. Morgan is giving, I think it's a wage increase,
That's right,
plus
10%.
a huge amount of money in extra money for loans, and then the Starbucks on top of it. It's a flood.
How about what's happening in California? You have these two local lawmakers. They're saying everything you make, if companies make a profit after tax reform, we want some of that profit. You have to give us 10%.
Is California still a part of the union? Because they're drifting off out there into the leftist land.
I doubt
Look, it's outrageous that they are going to say, look, you've got X number of extra dollars in your business because of the tax cuts. Take half of it and give it to us, the government of California, and we'll spread it around to the people who deserve it.
Right.
That's socialism writ large, and I don't like it.
That's why so many companies left for Texas and Florida.
Of course.
But overall, these are a lot of CEOs that aren't pro-Trump but are pro-business and going out of their way to make public that they are responding to the tax cut. I'm fascinated by this.
Look, I think American business was on trial. They got just about everything they wanted from the tax cut deal. All right, now what are you going to do for us?
And they're doing it.
If they don't do anything, the Bernie Sanders of this world are eager to jump in and re-tax them. But they are coming through with a flood of these give-backs and bonuses
it's
and
smart to do. That's
wage
how you
increases.
get your competitors' workers. You're offering more money, they're going to leave
part of
and
the
go
deal.
there.
We are short on skilled labor in America, short of labor, period. And so if you offer extra to your people, you're encouraging people to stay and come work for you. 100%. Competitive advantage.
The best way to hold on to the House is this tax reform if you're a Republican, because they run on their record. Stuart, if you would host a show from 9 to noon, today, on FBN, is that okay with you?
Yes, and I'd call it Varney and Company. Is that okay with you?
That's okay.
That's okay with Brian. His radio show changed. Now it's the Brian Kilmeade show.
Right.
Oh,
Used to include Friends.
Thank you, Stuart. All right, coming up on this Wednesday, the Department of Justice is about to take a major step to crack down on sanctuary cities. Public Affairs Director Sarah Flores here with an announcement you'll only see on Fox and Friends, and you're going to want to hear it. She's next.
Plus, I'll read this alone. Our friend Ben Shapiro will speak on a big college campus tonight, and some students are getting counseling to prepare for it. Seriously? Thanks, University of Connecticut.
Anything could happen. Anything could happen. Anything could happen.
We've been Omaha.
Live from New York City, Avenue of the Americas, it's Fox and Friends, 8:33 here in New York City. Let's go down to the Department of Justice, and Sarah Isgur Flores joins us today from our bureau. She's the DOJ's Public Affairs Director. Good morning to you.
Hi, Sarah. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
It's great to have you. And you've got a big announcement. You know, we've been talking for a while about sanctuary cities, and I know the President of the United States said, look, we're going to crack down on them. You've got a big announcement today, don't you?
Absolutely. Later this morning, we are going to announce that we have identified 23 jurisdictions that we think may not be in compliance with federal law. We are sending them a document request, and if they don't answer that, we're sending them a subpoena.
Can you give us an example of the jurisdictions that are going to be zeroed in on?
Well, I'm going to save those for later this morning, but I don't think they're going to surprise you.
Right.
These are the jurisdictions that have politicians who say that they're going to charge criminal aliens, illegal aliens who've committed crimes with lesser offenses than they would charge U.S. citizens. These are the jurisdictions that have politicians that release criminal aliens back onto the streets after they commit crimes so they can commit more crimes against their citizens. I mean, this is what caused Kate Steinle's death.
But aren't they protected by their local laws?
Well, they are, except if that means that they're conflicting with federal law.
Right.
So what we have here is that we've given them federal dollars, your taxpayer dollars, to cooperate with federal law enforcement. They didn't have to take that money, but they did. And when they took it, they said they would comply with federal law. So what we're saying is, if we find out you're not complying with federal law, we're taking the tax dollars back.
Okay, and the tax dollars we're talking about, because all of these municipalities and entities get a lot of money from the federal government. You're not talking about all the money. You're simply talking about the burn grants, right?
Yes, these are the grants that are for law enforcement. They're meant to help protect the citizens of these jurisdictions. So if they're not going to be protecting the citizens of these jurisdictions, we're going to give it to jurisdictions that actually care about law and order and restoring the rule of law in their communities.
You know, it's kind of sad because a lot of the cops want to enforce, but the politicians aren't letting them, and now they're going to be paying the price for it. Now, there's also talk last week, not confirmed by you guys, was that maybe you'll start arresting some of these mayors.
Well, I don't have any announcements on that this morning, but the truth is every crime committed by someone who shouldn't be in this country is a crime that's 100% preventable. And so we are highly prioritizing these sanctuary jurisdictions, urging them to cooperate with federal law enforcement so that we can lower the crime rates in some of these places.
And people want to see this list because a lot of families don't want to live in those counties because they want to be protected and they want to feel safe.
Well, you're going to see it later this morning.
We'll be standing by. Sarah, while you're here, we got to ask you a little bit about our lead story. We've heard through some congressional investigators some of the contents of some of the 50,000 text messages between the lovebirds who were working there at the FBI. Samsung came out with a statement this morning that said, hey, don't blame us, not our devices, but we're going to cooperate with the investigation. To the best of your knowledge, what happened?
Well, that's what we're going to find out. So here's what we know so far. We know that there were just over 50,000 text messages between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok during the time period that the Inspector General is investigating. And what we also know is that for about a 5-month period, those text messages never got into the FBI server. And we had informed Congress.
Why?
Well, and the Attorney General has said that we are going to get to the bottom of that. The Inspector General is looking into that immediately, and we're going to figure it out. And we're going to use every option available to find the text messages through other forms, whether it's the old phones, whether it's going to some of these technology companies that were involved and seeing if they have them. The Attorney General said we'll leave no stone unturned trying to find the text messages, and obviously we are reviewing immediately how they didn't get into the server in the first place.
You know, we just keep hearing about hard drives that get smashed with hammers and BleachBit that wipes out servers, so you can't blame the American people if they're listening saying there's going to be some reason why we never get those 5 months out again. But I also think it's kind of interesting to find out through the press that your boss, the Attorney General, did sit down with Robert Mueller's investigators. The term used was it went on for hours and it was a grilling. How do you guys characterize it?
Well, we were happy to confirm that the Attorney General spoke with the Special Counsel's office last week. He was there for a few hours, and then he returned to work to get back to the work of this president, reducing crime, taking on sanctuary cities, taking on the opioid epidemic.
Why did they interview him, Sarah?
I'm not going to step on the special counsel's investigation while it's ongoing, but the Attorney General was happy to speak to them about anything they wanted to ask about. And don't forget, this Attorney General, I think we counted something like 25 hours of open testimony in Congress last year. So he has said a lot about these topics and not shy to share.
We understand you, obviously, because the special counsel don't want to say too much, but let's go back for a second to the lovebirds at the FBI. They are still working for the FBI. Why?
Well, as the Inspector General's investigation is ongoing, we hope that wraps up soon and expect that we'll have a determination by the Inspector General of whether there was wrongdoing. And in the meantime, we have every confidence in Director Wray and that these folks no longer work on this investigation. They've been taken off of it as soon as these were discovered.
But Sarah, if they were taken off the investigation because they had an animus that was impacting their work, shouldn't they get canned?
Well, as you know, the career civil service rules are a little bit complicated, but once the Inspector General wraps up their report...
We're talking about the FBI. They should be above reproach.
That's absolutely true.
And they're still at the FBI.
And you know what? I spoke to my mother last night, who was one of the first supporters of this president from the moment he announced his candidacy. And this is exactly the conversation we had. She's reading the text messages like we all are, and is deeply disturbed and wants to know exactly what you're saying. And the answer is, when we have a finding from the Inspector General, which we're going to release publicly, that's when you're going to see some real action on this.
What do you know about the secret meetings?
I'm reading the same text message as you are, so I know nothing at this point beyond.
Day are they?
I wasn't invited.
You know what? I am so jealous of you, Sarah, because I cannot get my mom to text. We even got her an iPhone. She will not text. She'll only email.
Mine just started texting a couple months ago, so there's hope yet.
All right.
Is she on emojis yet?
No, we haven't gotten that far.
It's coming. I'm just telling you, it's coming.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
All right, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us and telling us as much as you can today.
Thank you.
I don't ever want to be a mom like that.
What? It doesn't.
Y'all keep me up to date on electronics, please. My mom sends like 7 texts in a row with just one letter. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing?
Testing things out.
Right.
All right.
I know.
She doesn't use vowels yet.
All right, 20 minutes before the top of the hour.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
We do have some news to get to, so let's get you caught up on some of these headlines right now, starting with this. The accused terrorist charged with murdering 8 people on a New York City bike path, refusing to stand for a federal judge. Sayfullo Saipov showing blatant disrespect in court. The Uzbek national is accused of mowing down people with a truck in the name of ISIS on Halloween. His lawyers have indicated he would take a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Fear of conservatism taking center stage on another college campus. The University of Connecticut offering counseling to any students offended by writer Ben Shapiro's speech today. The move, part of the school's new rules that only target conservative speakers. The university also taking aim at free speech, banning the public from attending Shapiro's appearance. Turning now to extreme weather, incredible video showing a school bus sliding backwards down an icy street in Massachusetts. Watch.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Oh my God.
There were nearly 24 kids on board that out-of-control bus when it slammed into a car. No one was hurt. Let's look at your headlines, guys. Send it to you.
It's one of those things you see it's going to happen and you just can't
control
stop
it.
Well, that car parked on the side of the road stopped it. It looked like.
Right. I like to formally come out against black ice, and I'm looking to campaign against it. Adam Klotz's also against black ice, right, Adam?
Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely against black ice because I'm slipping and falling all over the place all the time. We've got some excited people out here. First, we've got a group from Florida who was disappointed Janice Dean wasn't here. So because of that, I'm moving right along to this nice family that's been out here for over an hour, the Nielsen family. Wait, there's someone you wanted to give a shout out to, right?
Oh, my son, Broski. Love you.
Has it been a cold winter in Chicago?
It's freezing.
A freezing winter in Chicago. Well, there is some good news. Take a quick look at the maps. Can we pull them up real fast? I know I'm almost out of time here, but it is a little bit of a warm-up piling up in the middle of the country. All right, big Fox News fans, guys, we're throwing it back in. Who's your favorite anchor?
I'd be Adam, I think.
Oh, there it is. I thought they were going to say one of you guys, but I'm going to take that.
Tell them hello.
All right. Adam, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
You bet.
All right, coming up straight ahead in the next 18 minutes, if my rundown's right, Democrats continue to slam President Trump's border wall, but our next guest says the wall will work, and he's got 4 examples to prove it.
Plus, it's a thrilling new spy story. A CIA agent discovers a secret forcing her to choose between her country and her family. It's written by an actual CIA analyst. The author of Need to Know joins us live. Coming up.
To do is wait a second, your hands on mine, the clock is ticking.
Back, some Democrats continue to slam the president on his border wall.
A border wall is a waste of money.
The wall was a great idea in the 15th century.
It's just idiotic.
In the 15th century. Well, while some say the wall is ineffective for a border plan, countries around the globe have come to rely on walls. Michael Rubin is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. This is from our nation's capital. Michael, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning to you as well.
Okay, so the president wants to build a wall so that it's hard to get into this country. Does it work elsewhere? The answer is yes, right?
Well, absolutely. Critics of the wall like to pretend there's no precedent here, but the fact of the matter is more than 60 different countries rely on border walls, and when they've built them, they haven't come away disappointed.
Let's take a look at the big wall over here, some of the countries and the impact. For instance, in Israel, it did all that stuff, but it reduced attacks by 90%, didn't it?
Well, that's absolutely the case. I was in Israel teaching at a university during the terror campaign of 2001, 2002. That terror campaign was ended when Israel built the border wall along the West Bank. Now, some people say, hey, you look at the U.S.-Mexican border, people can just tunnel underneath it. Yeah. But the Israeli technologies have been able to counter that as well.